Welcome, kayak anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as shore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax. Let's do this.
Welcome to the River Run Podcast. I am Adam Fraser, and I welcome you. Welcome to the River Run Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Fraser. Welcome to season 2. We're here. I'm excited. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and done a podcast. The last one I did, which was the end of season 1, was right after, my in the mix of my rehabilitation or physiotherapy from my accident on the river in October. And so I told you guys I would be back. It's taken a little bit of time. I got back to work. I had to get through a couple other things, and in the end, I'm pumped to be here. And I really think this season 2 is going to be fun. I got a lot of stuff planned. I got some guests that I didn't actually get to in season 1 because it was cut short. But I thank everybody who's like, yo, like, what's going on with the podcast? And everybody is just reached out, when I was down, and they're just like, hey man, how are you doing? And, I appreciate all of yous. And even my guest tonight, Troy Wines, was somebody that was he was in the drop for season 1, but in the end, like I said, I had to cut it short. So before we dive in with Troy, if you probably know him as Troy Bassin around. He is the 2024 Smallmouth KBF Smallmouth Champion. So this is for all you, whether you're a tournament guy, whether you're into smallmouth fishing. He's a river guy, so like I said, this already fits the River Run Podcast. I did want to say though, before we get into everything, don't forget the fine folks over at Dubro Fishing offer a promo code for listeners, which is RRUN10 run, which is run 10. And you can save at checkout. Use the code dubrofishing.com. Check them out. They got a lot of cool stuff. Make sure if you're any angler out there that's looking for the most badass, in my opinion, utility cup, the Do More Utility Cup is the cup for you. Check it out. It's worthwhile to pick it up. You will be very satisfied with it. I got one last year, and I tell you, I'm going to be getting another one because I need more than one. So, but yeah. And, at the same time, I also wanted to touch on the River Run Podcast YouTube. check it out. It's got loads of stuff on it. It's got season 1 stuff too. If you guys are wanting to know what's up on that, don't forget the River Run Podcast Instagram. Don't forget to hit a like, you don't have to subscribe, but you can follow. And don't forget to find folks over at Jackson Kayak, Yak Attack, and the masterpiece from Drew Gregory, which is the Kayak Adventure Series. They are hitting up a whole bunch of places. And these places that are for each and every one of you to check out is coming up in June, and it's June 13th, and it's going to be in Springfield, Ohio, and it's the Midwest Fest. Now, if you're from Canada, it's really not that far of a drive. You can also hit the Mississippi Bronze Quest, which is, I believe, the Achigan one. Don't forget the Susky 5 Slam Jam in Boonsboro, Pennsylvania, and then Broodstock too. Either way, if you're thinking, the Kayak Adventure Series, I would definitely check it out. I'm going to actually try and make it to one of these. I'm thinking the one in August. But at the end of it, check out the Kayak Adventure Series, kayakadventureseries.com. They got everything there. You can go through the entire website. It is really easily laid out. And we all know what Drew's doing. Drew is just trying to bring people back to like more of a grassroots style. Check it out, kayakadventureseries.com. Like it is, and there's always my one, and it's always my favorite is for us folks up in Canada. If you're in Ontario, come and check out Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing. Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing is just a group atmosphere. It is not a tournament trail. Whatnot is grassroots. It's just people getting out. It's people to go out and share the same passion as each other. So all I suggest you do is go check out Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing on Instagram. They do have a Facebook page. If you're in the Southern Ontario area, definitely go check it out. They got meetups coming up. But in the end, let's without any further ado, I would like to bring on my guest, Troy Wines. Troy, what's going on, man?
Hey Adam, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for having me.
You know what? Like I said in the intro here, dude, like we were kind of like talking about this, like back at season 1. I was like, and we would work, with trying to get some times that would work, and then life's busy, right?
Yes.
So, what a better way, I guess, for season 2 as an intro into season 2, somebody with quite a title, but just a, sincere and genuine person. Man, I thank you for taking the time to come and chat with, everyone at the River Run Podcast, and taking that time is, I'm very appreciative of that.
Well, I'm glad to be on here. I'll tell you what, when I started doing this bass fishing for smallmouth back in 2021, some of the most people that send me messages all the time and most appreciative people around the country was actually my friends up north that hopefully one day I'll get to come up and fish with them, from Michigan to Canada to Minnesota, all the way up to in New York and all that stuff like that. They're always sending me messages, congratulating me on some of the big fish that I catch here in Virginia, because Virginia is not known in a lot of people's mind as a big smallmouth capital, but man, we sit on a really rich river system here, and I've used 5 of these rivers. I still got one more river that haunts me from a citation, which we'll get into later. But I really appreciate being on here and being able to talk to everybody up north, because I tell you what, it wouldn't be any bassing around without a lot of folks from up that way giving me love and support and cheering me on. So I will say that.
Well, I just like we've talked in the past, dude, like I watch these smallmouth photos come up, and I won't lie, I'm like, like wiping the drool off my face, because these things are just so beautiful, and like,
yep.
And there's nothing more exciting to me than river fishing, and just chasing smallmouth, like up these small rivers, going out there and it's, you never know, like you just never know what you're going to stumble across.
Yep.
So before we get too far into this, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yep.
And you can just kind of let everybody know like where you're from and whatnot. And then, yeah, man, let's dive into this.
All right. Well, I'm Troy Wines. I'm originally from Lexington, Virginia. Grew up fishing as a young guy over that way. My daddy was part of Rockbridge County Bassmaster, so he had me and my brother strung out there fishing when we were just young kids all the time. Grew up fishing a river over there called the Maury River. That's all we did was eat, sleep, and stay out in the water. Probably when my mother didn't want us out there, just sneaking around, always fishing. And then, of course, life moves on with you. You grow older, you got to go to work, get a real job, and all that good stuff like that. And so, it's but no, it's fishing's been part of my life, anywhere from bass fishing and fishing out of the boat and boat tournaments to where I got in a string where I just love nothing but catfishing. But yeah, just simple old country boy from Virginia. Just I try to go out and do my best every day and try to support everyone as well. But and then when COVID hit, everything was so shut down, and I always tell everybody a story. I was like, I looked at my and said, I'm going to go buy me a kayak. I can't go on the lakes, I can't go here, I can't go there. So I went ahead and went out and bought me a kayak. Never kayak bass fish, and then I just went crazy for smallmouth bass. Like I always was a greenfish guy, chased largemouth. Like I say, as younger, I chased smallmouth, but I really didn't know what I was doing. When you're a kid, you're just excited to catch a fish. But man, this I never dreamed that. And in 4 years, 4.5 years, it's just been just absolutely nuts with the amount of smallmouth and the size of the smallmouth and all the wins and gains and just all the experience that I've had out there on the water. So.
No, like you can, well, you have, when you look at all these photos that you've shared, and you see the amount of smallmouth, you can see that there is such a passion in you, man. Like,
Yeah.
And yeah, I know for me, I'm just so smallmouth orientated. Like
Hmm.
I have zero desire to catch other fish. For me,
Hmm.
to go and catch river smallmouth is what I love to do. If that was the only fish I could catch for the rest of my life, I would say that's fishing. That's I'm happy. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But I just you're talking down home country boy from Virginia
Hmm.
but like you talked just a little bit about your passion and like you've been fishing you in your earlier days and
Yep.
like when you look at when you first got into fishing to what it is now and like what was really like, do you remember what drew you to it? You know what I mean? Like what was that part where you're like, whether you're a kid, like for me it was like
Yeah.
I just my grandpa was like, yeah, let's I'll
My
take
dad,
fishing.
my dad. I thought he was the greatest fisherman ever. Just to watch him, back when he was fishing, they had the Red Man series and things like that for tobacco
Yeah.
but I always thought my dad was the greatest bass fisherman that I ever seen in my life. And when he would take us and he would just really invest the time into us to show us, how to truly respect bass. Like he was always never keep a bass. We would catch and release all the time. It's one of the things that we did because there's other fish in the rivers that are better to eat or lakes than a darn bass. That's the way that we was raised. But just watching my dad, he just always just love it. I mean, we even grew up sneaking into places to go fishing. That's how crazy he was. My father would get off work sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, and when I got older as a teenager, and he would come by and would pick me up at my grandparents' house, and he would and we would go out fishing late at night and stuff like that. He just always bass fishing. I didn't really, for a long period of times, I didn't even realize you could catch bass during the day. I always thought we caught bass at night because we'd always go out and we would go throw, when no one throws too much anymore, jitterbug all night long. And
Ooh.
so, yeah, we would get the little bit longer black jitterbug, and we would go out there and rip that thing all night long and just wait to hear the toilet flush and of a bass being on it. And of course, that's when we chased nothing but greenfish. And then I think when I fell in love with the smallmouth and all stuff like that, my dad, he found a spot that was really loaded up on big smallmouth, and I always seen his citation he had on the wall, which was as a trophy fish. And he always brags, and he still tells me to the day, it's been 30 years since I caught this son. And at that time, it was a different length, and they didn't go by lengths; they went by size and everything and weight. And so I've always had to look at this smallmouth bass that he had. That he claimed to be the greatest smallmouth bass in the river, and I was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna get you, old man. I love you, but I'm gonna pass you and shoot on past you as far as catching smallmouth.
I'm gonna one up you right now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
no, that's super special, dude. Like
yeah.
when you like to have that connection, because there's a lot of kids these days that you can tell they want to fish, but they just don't have the parent that does it or the know-how. And and I, even as a father right now, like I always take, like, any chance you guys want to go fishing, my kids, I'm like, let's go, like, and they are just more than happy to be out there slinging a line, whether it's chucking a wacky wig or some worm on a hook and a sinker, and you can see, even for me, like growing up, like I always enjoyed fishing. Like I thought fishing was fun, but I wasn't necessarily like, this kid who grew up, fishing all the time. Like we fish in the summertime, go to the cottage, we'd fish there. Oh, I lived in BC, fish there with buddies or whatever. But later in life, that drive, and I was just like, man, my passion for fishing for me was just like, I need to, like, I don't want to push this on my kids, but I always offer them, just probably like your dad did. Hey, hey Troy, you want to go fishing,
Yeah.
man? You coming out today? And I always say that, and they were just always for it. So, instilling that passion for the outdoors, I think, is just such an important thing, because in these days, yeah, it's easy to get lost in the technical world of video games and, oh gosh, everything else that screen time. So, but I did want to ask you though, like before we dive into something here. So we were talking, and I remember I sent you a message, and we were like, you're talking about citations, and I was like, every time I hear you talk about a citation, I think you're getting in trouble, because you're like, oh, I got another citation, and I'm like, man, like how many citations are you getting while you're fishing? Like that to me, I'm like, up north, like a citation I would think is like, kind of like a speeding ticket, you know what I mean? Like it's, so, for the folks that maybe don't know what the citation part is, could you explain it just so we're all on the same page?
Well, it's a trophy fish, but of course, the way the Virginia Department of Fishery explains it is a citation. So yes, so when you get a citation, typically it's something for either moving or walking or doing something you probably shouldn't be doing, and issued a citation. So I think it's for us here in Virginia. Most of us that just say we don't say trophy fish, we just say, hey, I caught another citation. And so I think that's what I typically use. I've been trying to clean it up a little bit, because you would not believe, you're not the only person that's like thinks that I get in trouble every time I go out fishing, and I might catch 5 in a month or something like that, and a trophy smallmouth. But here in the state of Virginia, a trophy smallmouth is 20 inches and above, and or over 5 pounds. And so that is a citation slash trophy smallmouth out of these waters.
Okay, so like, because it was just so funny, because I was like, man, like I even thought to myself, said, why is he so open and honest about this, like, citation? Like, most people would say, a little hush hush about it, but no. And that's really interesting, because, a 20-inch fish on, that's a nice smallmouth right there.
It is.
It's definitely a smallmouth of size and power. It's a beast. It's been in that river system, whether it's traveled, way up against the current, or it's, ended up in some little hole that it's lived in for the past, however many years. That's, and I bet you, like, like when you get that fish, and what is going through your head? Like I can't, like, because you're not just, this isn't like citation 1, citation 2, like you have several citations.
98.
Yeah. And like, in some ways, like, this is like, it's a personal endurance challenge to go out there and complete it, because I know I see all your posts, and even when we talk, you're like, yeah,
Yep.
just banged out 97, boom, banged out 98. And I'm like, holy, like, what? Like
Yeah.
that, you have some very special river systems up there that hold some significantly large trophy sized smallmouth.
Yep.
And, you know, that, and to be in your own backyard is, you know, that's a treat.
It's a big treat, you know. For me, I never really took it serious as far as catching these trophy smallmouth, you know, until 2023, and then I had to go back and backtrack how many I've caught before that, because you know, lucky today, unlike my dad's day, you had to take a Polaroid to, you know, and then it faded. But you know, when I went into 2023, I was like, all right, I'm gonna focus and see how many I could catch, and so ended up catching 29. And then last year, my quest that you saw was catching 30. Well, then I went back and was like, man, I need to add up everything. And lucky, you know, using KBF. And if no one's using Catch 22, if you're not fishing any tournament, I always suggest to people with KBF, at least fish Catch 22. It's a great pause, but also it's a great to keep track of how many big fish you catch. Because not only are you logging your 20s on there, you're logging your 19s and your 18s. And so you can kind of get an idea, you know, when you caught it. So, you know, if you remember where you caught your 19 at, you know, or 18, you know, 2 years from now, that fish is aged more like us, and you know, and it could be 20 inches long. And so that's one thing. So I started going back and I counted. I was like, man, you know, we're getting close to 100 trophy smallmouth bass over 20 inches, and some over 5 pounds, and you know, in 4 years. And I'm just like, man, I was like, I'm how many other folks on here? So I started doing some more searching for smallmouth. And I will say too, on the citations too, the DWR allows you to pay $5. I don't have the paper on me. I should have prepared a little bit better, but it has your name on it and says, you know, Troy Wines, 21-inch fish, and you have that citation paper with you and all the stuff like that. So that's where the citation comes from. Where, but anyway, but it never gets old catching a big fish like it. Like the power of it, I can't even explain it. It's like when I last time I went out on the James River here, you know, I was just out, just going out for 2 hours of fun. The grass was starting to come up, and I knew when I threw my top water lure and I seen just the way the wake was in the water, and it came up out and hit that top water bait that I was throwing, and then seeing the size of it, stuff like that. I was like, holy moly. And so it's almost, I'm always like a kid on Christmas every time I catch one of these 20-inch fish or even a 19-inch fish, because that's a big fish. And it's just and not too many people do it. I have a lot of folks that come up to me all the time. It's like, man, I've only caught one. I've only caught two. You know, we have our good friend Wade at Yak Attack and all that stuff like that. And he's there you go. You have a picture of the citations. But my good friend, our good friend Wade at Yak Attack, you know, now he picks with me because he's got 4 or 5 now, maybe 6. And so he's like, I'm slowly catching up with you. But to catch 98 of them,
Uh-oh.
it's been unbelievable.
Yeah, so like
Yep.
this is the plaques that you're talking about, where it says
Yes.
the Department of Wildlife,
Yep.
and it shows the species of fish, and looks like it has your name on it.
Yep.
And so yeah, between $5 for certified DWR, 25 for 6 brands. Like, man, that's really that is really like that is really cool. Like,
Yep.
I think that is such a neat thing. And you know, because really at the end of the day, like when you catch those when you catch such a majestic fish like that, being such a beast, you know, you went out there and you caught it. Like you chose a technique. You know, big fish don't always come easy, and you were starting to learn, like, even the wake of, you know, it moving through that water, and you're like, you know what, I think we're on to something. And the way that thing hits, and it's like, wow, like, you know, this is possibly another citation.
Yeah. And
you snap a photo with loads of them, you know, fish from 20 to 21, and you have like a 23.25.
Yes.
Like
KBF trophy record. I think if you go to Fish Chaos and look at their new smallmouth and largemouth logins, it's at number 1 in KBF history as far as length of a 23. The 23 club. I got my 23 club hat that I have in there, but yeah, it's you to me it's just no other fight in the world. And then you're right, that wake when it hits
There it
and
is.
the explosion on that water and stuff like that. So that's the championship round of 105 inches that was able to
20,
get
23.25.
23. And now there's a special story about that 23.25 too.
Well, I would love to hear this story of the 23.25, and I think a lot of these listeners would probably want to hear it also, because
Yep.
at the end of the day, like you don't just come by a 23.25 fish. Like that is
No.
like some people like will never come by that in their lifetime. Some people may only come by, the 23 or that 22, 7.5, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
to be 23, like that is a fish. It's like a dinosaur of a smallmouth.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, that year was a special year to catch that. Both, I actually have two fish in the same year that I thought was going to be a fish of a lifetime. I never thought I would ever see a 23. You hear everybody always says, "Oh, I caught a 23 before." Well, where's your picture? Where's it to show and stuff like that? Let me see it. Earlier in that year, I caught a 22 and a half that was almost 7 pounds. And so it's I have the video of that. I'll have to get that over to you, of just not me catching the fish, of just showing the girth. And a lot of my Canadian friends and especially my northern 50 staters up there, they reached out to me and cannot believe that came from Virginia waters when you see the girth of this fish. So I thought I caught the fish in my lifetime when I caught this 22.5 inch fish, and it was, like I say, it was almost 7 pounds. And it's just and it actually didn't even put up a fight. That's why I couldn't believe it was. But the 23 1/4 was just, it was dead hot. I was sweating. I was waiting on the night bite to happen. And I mean, it was just one of these Virginia hot days. It felt like you're in Louisiana type of sweat going on. And I then got tired, and I didn't want to really smoke my waters yet and started fishing for my topwater bite for the evening, because I was fishing in this tournament for for the trophy behind me. Well, so I get over and I tie on. I said, I'm gonna just go ahead and throw a crankbait. I figured maybe something was just, might be deep, playing around.
Yeah.
So I tie on a DT8 crankbait by Rapala, and I'm just screwing around, and I throw it up over the rock, bring it back. I mean, a crush, and I'm like, I thought it was a flathead catfish, because when it came up, and our catfish here are just absolutely crazy. I'm now catching flatheads, blues, channels on spinner baits. On I haven't caught them on topwater yet, but it's coming. I've caught them on a wake bait before. They've really, I think, because of the way the bait has changed in the rivers and even our lake systems, is the catfish are now being aggressive to fight for food, just like the bass is. So I thought it was just another old stinking old flathead. So I was kind of mad at first, when I saw it turn. I was like, "There's no way there's a smallmouth that big." So I get it over and I get it more closer, gets to me. I'm like, "Holy moly!" I said, "This is a freaking smallmouth." And it looked like it was 27 inches long. I mean, I just could not believe it was this long. So I get it netted. I'm shaking. I mean, I call Chad Hoover on the phone, and Chad could tell you this right now, because Chad caught a 10-pound largemouth after I got off the phone with him, because he was on Guntersville fishing. I'll never forget it. So I called Chad. I said, "Chad, I have caught the ugliest beat up smallmouth you ever want to see in your life." And I said, she has been through whatever to get up here to where she was at. Her tail was tore up. I will tell you. I mean, if her tail wasn't as tore up what it is, she may have stretched out longer than what it is. But I
Oh,
was just so trying to keep myself under composure when I laid it and seen it hit past 23, and it hit 23 1/4. I just was just blown away. And so she's old, and I'm like, I got to get this thing back in the water. That's one thing I love about kayak bass fishing. I feel like we preserve our fish better than almost anybody in the industry, because we put our fish right back where we find them at. We're not taking them, getting them beat up and everything. Not
yeah.
knocking boats or anything, but I feel like so
No,
my goal was to
100%.
try to keep this dinosaur line alive, because you figure 23 inches like that, it's what, 25 years old. You know, I mean,
Easily.
by scale, yeah. And
Yeah.
so when I put it in the water, I'm like, "Please don't belly up," because Chad's like, "You got to send me a release just in case anybody." But I did. I followed around. I got a little release video. I'll send that one over to you so you can see her. And she took a little minute to pick up, but she took off and swim away. And like I say, it was a fishing story of my life. I never thought in And that year I would catch 2 fish of a lifetimes in my book, one almost 7 and another one that was 23 and a quarter.
It's such an accomplishment, man. Like,
Yeah, man.
and like just listening to your story of how, and like the excitement in it, and just,
No.
and that there, it's like you're just knocking these trophy fish off. Like, it is an accomplishment, and it's impressive. Like, it really is. And that's probably just years of experience kind of coming together, in the kayak thing. And I will touch on this. I do believe that, as kayak anglers, I do think we are much more, I would say we are definitely much more cautious with fish. Like,
Mhm.
the boat, I'm not bashing the boat scene,
Yeah.
but I will say, I've seen a lot of guys who I've fished with, and they've had issues with, it does happen. Fatality in fish it can happen.
Yep.
But I've seen people spend a lot of time reviving fish, taking the time, making sure that they catch and release, not just dumping that fish and on to the next one. It's the kayak community, I really do feel, appreciates their waterways and their rivers and their lakes and the fish that inhabit it too, right? Like,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have a fish downstairs in the freezer, and I almost cried over it. I ain't gonna lie to you. One of my buddies, Matt Shepard, we were fishing, and I've always tried to take care of my smallmouth, but I actually stuck this smallmouth in its tongue, and I didn't tell it how to eat. It just ate. And one thing about tongue fishing, catching one in the tongue, sometimes it's going to die. And she was 21 and a half, and I couldn't throw it on the bank. Like it literally died on me when I was sticking it back in the water. I measured it. We finagled it. Both of us got out. I mean, we actually took 30 minutes to try to play with this fish, and she just was going to die. So I couldn't throw it up on the bank. So I said, you know what? I got a trash bag in my truck. I wrapped her up, put her on ice, and I got to carry her down the road and get her on the wall soon. But that's the only fish I've ever lost, and it really broke my heart because it was a trophy fish that someone else could have
yeah.
went and caught, and that's the only one I would say out of the 98 that I've caught that didn't live, and I didn't even, and like I say, because I try to do my best to preserve our fish.
That is the fact of it's a part of fishing. Like,
Yep.
you have the opportunity to gut hook those fish. You
Yep.
can't get the hook out. You start to mess around, and next thing you know, that fish is bleeding even more, and
hmm
the livelihood of that fish surviving is pretty limited at that point.
Especially high water temperatures too, because sometimes our one thing about our rivers too, which you probably don't, I don't know what your average temperature when you hit summer up there with your rivers, but sometimes our rivers are up in the 80s out here. So it's
Yeah.
hard on a smallmouth. You need same thing with our muskie. Sometimes our muskie decide to get froggy and bite, late summer and early fall and stuff like that, mid fall when it's really still hot. And so that's why I try to get them back in the water as quick as possible.
So I do want to touch on something here.
Mhm.
You've gone from growing up fun fishing, like
Mhm.
you go out with your dad, and you continued that on. When did this whole tournament aspect come into place? Like, when did you really begin to find this, because the KBF has been around for a long time. The
Yep.
Smallmouth series, I believe, started, was it
23.
2023?
Yep, 23.
And Chad had come out with that. Now, do you fish like local tournaments, or do you just mainly do onlines? Like, how does that
Well,
work?
currently I'm with two smallmouth clubs that run tournaments in the DMV area, and then they both offer national tournaments as well. Anybody below the 40 can fish. But currently, I'm with Smallie Chasers River Bassin, and then
Oh, yeah.
also I fish with Yakers for Smallie out of Southwest Virginia. I just went back fishing with that group this year. Great bunch of group of guys that love smallmouth bass fishing. But when I got into it, there was a local club here called the Bass Cast, and so Bass Cast was a KBF affiliate. I just accidentally bumped into a guy on a river, and he saw me catching crazy amount of fish, and he's like, "Hey man, you ever tournament fish?" And I'm like, "What's tournament fishing?" So this is 2021. So I'm just telling you, this is 2021. And so my first tournament that I ever got into was 9/11 tournament for socks and cookies. So I didn't even fish Bass Cast first. I fished actually for socks and cookies. It was a military based organization that I fished with them. So I had to go home. I had to figure out what a catch board was, because I was still measuring with the how my daddy used to do it. We had a ruler that you lay out, make sure, and I didn't have the mouth closed right. I had to learn that, to
Yeah.
make sure that mouth's closed and measure from head to tail. I didn't know what a catch board was. I didn't know any of this stuff at all. I went home and I started looking and got online, and I relied on a lot of folks that I just became friends with on Instagram that was sharing a lot of from even up north more, because they were seeing my smallmouth and they was like, dude, make sure you measure them this way, this way, this way. So like I say, up to about fall 2021, I didn't even know how to measure a smallmouth correctly to even say, to get those extra inches and
That's
on
wild.
the board. So when I got to doing that, it's and those tournaments just kicked off and just went nuts. And it's been fun, a lot of monthlies, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears left out there on the water, I will tell you that. So
Putting in the time, putting in the
oh yeah.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. Like that's and that's the part of kayak fishing is the skill of measuring fish.
Yeah.
Because as much as you could probably catch them, let's be serious. Smallmouth are very good at getting off catch boards. They
Yep.
are, they don't sit still. They're some of the hardest fish I would say, to take pictures of. Especially on a board, when you're trying to stretch, you may trying to get that tail to, get a little more, or,
Yep.
do that, stretch the fish out. And, you got something with a lot of power behind it, right? And
Yep.
it moving. So yeah, no, I can totally relate to that story, because I went through the same thing myself as somebody who got into kayak fishing and did not
Mhm.
measure fish with a catch board or a hog
Yeah.
trough. It was
Yeah.
literally a measuring tape.
Yep.
And I remember, yeah, okay, cool, like this is amazing, And then I remember going and doing like one of my first tournaments, and I was like, I was catching smallmouth on a lake, and I had a harder time keeping them on the board,
Mhm.
because I'd lit and boom, fish is going. I'm like, oh, really? I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I just spent all that time, and I'm like, oh, okay, do another one, and it can be also frustrating at the same time. But yeah, no, in the end, the whole measuring catch part, it's to catch a fish, now to measure and capture the fish of that, caliber in the photo, so you can actually gain the inches, because in kayak fishing, it is inches. It is
Yep.
not weight like a
Yep.
bass boat or the glitter boat
Yep.
tournaments. So you start this, and you're becoming more and more into these tournament circuits, your presence of really coming out on top.
Mhm.
And then in 2024, you do the like unimaginable, and you become the Smallie Series Champion, which is a KBF series, and you are the 2024 champion.
Yes.
You have a trophy in your hand, and if I can see that correctly,
That is correct.
your there we go. That trophy is sitting right behind you.
Yep.
Do you
Beautiful
mind?
trophy.
Would you bring it a little closer to the screen, so the
We'll
folks
bring it a little
that,
bit.
like, as much as we all want to reach up and touch that thing,
Yeah.
that's like, what did that feel like? Like that's a big accomplishment. Like, if you had like that list of like, before I do this, I want to do A, B, and C. Like, to
Yeah.
come out on top like that, man. Like that is something to be very proud of. Like, and I'm sure that also brought a lot of spotlight in that sense too, because that Smallies series is not just located or not just in Virginia. That is essentially everybody in it who registers in the United States and in Canada.
Yes.
Because I know for a fact a couple guys that fish that on the Canadian, like who are Canadians. And, you know, I remember seeing some of their names up in it. But I always remember seeing Troy Wines. Troy Wines. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who this guy is. Like, this is like, and then I remember stumbling across just Troy bassing around, and I'm like, wow, this dude's serious. Like, this guy is a serious, you know, river angler. And I'm like, wow, like, and he's not just like he's dominating these things by like several inches. Like you are coming up on top, and not just in that, but in also in previous to your own, you know, tournament runs. So, you know, I'm sure that had to, you know, like I said, it's quite the accomplishment, but like at the same time, like, how do you feel about that? Like, how does that make you feel, man? Like,
Man, you know what? I was riding around like I won the Stanley Cup. You know, it's I've carried it with me to my jobs. I can't say what I do for a living, but you know, my customer base is that follow me on my social media is just through the roof. This thing I haven't slept with it because you know I don't want to be getting bruised and everything from it because
fair
it's pretty
enough.
darn heavy. But you know, our quest for this thing, you know, when you know I got a text message. I didn't even know this was going on. I don't know if you know Justin Largen that fishes. He's actually one of the missile bait pro staffers, and he
Yeah,
fishes a
I've
lot of
seen
big
him.
tournaments. Yep, Justin sent me a message and he said, "Hey man, KBF is getting ready to drop a smallmouth tournament down in." And you know, Justin's a pro, and he's like, if anybody can win this tournament, it's you. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, I'm getting up. And Justin and I had competed against each other. Like we had a river tournament that we went, you know, mono to mono with, and I beat him by 10 inches, and he finished second place. And
Wow.
so I never knew him, and you know, and I actually wanted to, you know, I felt bad because I never told Justin this when I saw his name in our river competition at that time. I was like, man, we're bringing a ringer in here. Here's a pro fishing against us local guys here. But in my mind, I'm a pro, you know, because I'm like, you know, I'm pretty badass when it comes in my mind. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna catch citations like it's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when I saw Justin sign up for it, and he's on giving podcasts and he's on doing this and talking about this tournament, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've won 2 or 3 tournaments in a row in this thing, and I can't even get a darn interview. So I went out and I made sure that I outfished Justin and won. Well, anyway, I meet him. He's a great, I mean, he's just such a nice guy. Well, he sends me this message about this KBF smallmouth, and to get and you know get a just something from him saying, hey, if anybody can go out and win this thing, go give them boys up north the heart hell, go give them hell. That's what he said. You know, you can go win this thing. So, you know, it started off, and you know, at first I was like, man, I mean, how are we going to compete against, you know, because you think of big smallmouth, you think of Canada, New York, Minnesota, Michigan, you know, all the great states and the great waters and stuff like that. But you know, one thing that Virginia has is y'all have fat fish. We have long fish. And
Mhm.
so that's so when, you know, the round started off and all the stuff like that, I was always in that top five and the threes and stuff like that. I think I finished second. And also Chad was running a river series all as well. But so when I got fishing with it all year long, you know, I kept on strategizing, you know, I just if I can stay in this, because we really didn't know how the championship round was going to figure out. We thought maybe the top 50 would fish, or we heard the top 25 that was going to be in the points that would fish for it. We really didn't know. So, like I said, I knew if I stayed, but I always stayed in the top five all the way up to that championship round. And when I got in that championship round, I knew that when he had it scheduled, I knew that I had that window where I was going to have a little bit warmer waters than the guys up north was going to have. And so I better use those warmer water advantages to go out there and deliver. And so when we hit that championship round, but also too, I knew that our fish would have been on spawn out, so the length would have went longer because they wasn't as fat anymore. So no lies, that's what I was thinking the whole time. So the night that I say that I won this title, I went out and I caught 4 Virginia Trophy smallmouth over 21 inches long.
Jesus.
And I always tell everybody, it was an accidental find with a light. I had a light shining off my kayak, and I was screwing around with the bait, and bugs are flying everywhere in my face. Being a country guy, we eat bugs. I mean, it ain't like we want to do it, but we used to. We spit it out and all the stuff like that. But I saw these mayflies flying around, and these bass was like shining on this light that I had going across the water, and it like brought all these the bugs tension across of it. And then I just said, man, I'm gonna use this, and I'm throwing pop maxes over there. I'm throwing whopper ploppers, catching 4 trophy smallmouth. No lie, that night I stood up there and fished. I missed the 5th trophy smallmouth in that night, but I had almost 105 inches in one night
Holy
fishing
world.
for smallmouth bass. And Eric, I think he's from Minnesota. He ended up finishing 2nd in this competition, and he made a run back. I worried about him the whole time because he always finished up there at the top and all the stuff. Such a nice guy. And he sent me a text message, I think a day before the tournament was over with, and said, "Hey, brother," he said, "congratulations, I can't catch you." He said, "Heck, he had 103.5, I believe." And it just was a dream come true to be able to win the championship round and all that stuff.
Like that had to be a neat experience. Like
Yeah.
going out there at night.
Yep.
I have personally never night fished.
Mm.
I have gone off the bank, but I've never done it in my kayak. So I've come in like late, like I've come in to the ramp, in the dark, and I've left in the dark, but I've never actually physically been out there, in the evening at night. But that would be quite the scene to see, like when that light hit across that water and all those mayflies are just kind of like completely attracted, but now
Yep.
it's like illuminating these fish who are just like on a feeding frenzy.
Yep.
Like that, like it's a little pocket of gold right there. You know what I mean?
I think it was a hatch, to be honest with you. I think it was a hatchling because I ain't lying. I was spitting more bugs out of my dorm mouth that night, and but I was catching fish. I was wiping my eyes, and it was just never. I've only had that experience on the river one time before. I remember I was fishing a tournament that I won when I was fishing with the Yakkers for Smallies for the first time. I've stunk it up all day long. Everybody thinks, hey, you catch big fish all the time. That's not true. It's tough to catch big fish. I literally prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, I said, if there's anything out there that can happen, I said, please send me something up this river and help me. This is no lie. 30 minutes later, I started hearing shad smack up against the dam. The shad had moved up the river, and when they moved up to the dam, the smallmouth looked like salmon, or salmon, however you want to say it.
salmon, yeah.
Salmon crushing all this bait fish that done went as far as it could up the river. And I was just a lucky SOB that was sitting right there in his kayak watching this going on. And I literally could throw anything over there, and they were just biting all this stuff. And I ended up coming back and almost catching I caught 100 inches in the last hour, and I won the darn tournament just because of just having some luck like that happen to me.
The fishing gods are on your side. You know what I mean?
I always tell everybody, if you don't want to record me, you'll hear Amazing Grace sung in about 50 different remixes when I'm out there fishing. So
well, that is like I gotta say, your stories and your experiences out on the water, like those are really neat experiences, you know what I mean? And like you're also showing like the endurance to go out there at night, and at the same time, you're working your way up the river, and next thing you know, you're looking over and you're like, God, like what? There is just like, if I could just catch, like if you could just give me something. And then it's like I don't know if that's like Bruce Almighty at this point, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Bruce Almighty of smallmouth, and like next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, look at that. No way, there's shad busting up over there, and it's like, all right, well, we'll just reach behind and cast away and let's see what we can do. And then pull out 105, where most people would probably be working, 100 inches, would take, on a good day, a couple hours to really move through. And then you're doing this, then, a matter of, not, let's say not minutes, but, an hour or so. That's pretty impressive.
I think one thing I can say about tournament fishing, I've got a lot of respect from a lot of folks. I might not always win a tournament, but when I go up against guys that catch greenfish and they're naturally longer, but when I, I had a tournament where it was a monthly. I had 106 inches in smallmouth, 106 and a quarter. Lost to a guy catching greenfish, and he had 110 inches. To me, that's not a loss. Okay, that's not a loss. And because there's plenty of people. One of the guys like, hey, can I get one of these trophies made? If you go catch 105 and a quarter in 1 month, I'll send you my trophy. I'll catch the build you one. I'll be glad to do it. But it's one of the things about fishing that I just love is that you're never out of it, and these month-long tournaments give you a chance to understand how to fish a single event or a 2-day event, and that's just one thing that I love so much about them.
So I gotta ask you, do you prefer the month-long tournaments, or do you prefer to go to an actual live tournament?
I like them both. One of the things I'll tell you the difference between me. I don't honey hole fish. A lot of folks think that a lot of my fish are coming from the James River. Okay, I have 5 rivers that I have submitted trophy smallmouth on. Okay, I don't know too many other guys that can just show up on other river systems, and I drive 2 hours. I just drove not too long ago, 2.5 hours, and caught a trophy smallmouth in a new location. Okay. So, but I do like the monthly push because it allows you're never out of, you can always come back. Day events, sometimes dailies are tough because, you go in as the favorite and, it don't work out for you. I had that with my first ever Kayak Adventure Series. After day 1, I was in 3rd place in a South Boston event. And then the second day, I fell apart. The smallmouth wasn't there. I caught more damn walleye than I have ever seen in my life. You've seen my post. I was even a smart aleck. Like I said, the day when your super powers leave you and you catch walleye bass. And I walleye fish. And it's just like, and it did. It left me. I caught so many walleye that were in my smallmouth holes. And I was just shocked that day. I couldn't find anything no size. And that was a humble, it was a humbling thing that, you cannot always, bank on that your fish are going to be there because the smallmouth moves. But I do like I think it's more pressure on a single event, and I do like that pressure. And then, like I said, in the monthlies, I like it. It forces me to go fish. But I'll tell you one thing: I don't never scoreboard watch. People think that I look at the scoreboard. Only time I look at the scoreboard if I catch a fish within the first minute or two off the bat, I'll try to see if I'm the first person to catch the fish, and then because normally there's a prize of that. After that, I know if I'm doing good or not. So why do I need a scoreboard watch? I don't need to put any more pressure on me. So
I think even for me, like I've always enjoyed the live event. Like I enjoyed going out there and getting on a body of water for a day and trying to figure it out. Like there's just, you can grow so your personal development as a kayak angler, or just an angler in general. There's so much growth that happens. You might see like, oh man, I didn't really catch what I wanted. I couldn't really find the size, but you know what? You're getting through those uncomfortable moments. You're getting through the moments where you're like doubting yourself, where you got to lean on that decision that you got to make. And you're just going and you're doing it. And it may only be from 7 to 3 or 6 to 2 or whatever it is, but you're going out there and doing it. But at the same time, these live events, they bring the community together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think multiple events I've gone to, and it's just the sense of camaraderie to go there, and you're, oh man, like how was your day out there? Like everybody, I don't know, it just seems like everybody's always like wanting to know how you did out there, and how how did it go for you? And there are people who are like, they're the serious ones who just like stand in the background, and they're just like, I'm not sharing nothing, where I'm that angler who's like, yeah man, like I threw this, I was over here, like I had nothing to hide, you know what I mean? Like I just, sure, if I can give you a knowledge nugget and it helps you out, then by all means. You speak about the Kayak Adventure Series in South Boston. What was quite that like what were your thoughts? Like did you enjoy it? Like was it like obviously you said you went from catching smallmouth and going to walleye, so that
Walleye bass.
walleye bass.
That's what I called them, because they shouldn't have been there.
Do you eat the walleye or?
No. I mean, if I typically would, I would have had them stringed up and gave them to my buddy, because he loves throwing them in a frying pan. But
Yeah, it's good to
but
eat.
yeah, but no, it's I had no clue that. So Kayak Adventure Series, that was my first time, fishing at. I made them. Someone sent me a text message that, "Hey man, I can't believe you're in third place after day one." And I'm like, "Why did you send that to me? I didn't want to know where I was at, because I didn't want to." Because then I was like, "Don't, it's going to put pressure on me." But I'm gonna tell you, first of all, what a great group of guys. When I missed because of my work, I missed some of the functionings, the getting down there for the breakfast and all the stuff. But when I came there for the even though I know I didn't do good on the second day, I still showed up, with my trophy, met a lot of the guys. I was more, it was one of those things with a lot of respect, because some of those guys I follow on Instagram I never met. Most of them walked up to me and was like excited to meet me and congratulate me on all my big smallmouth that I catch. So that was a great feeling. But like I said, just a bunch of great group of guys. I wish I did better. I wish I went back to where I started at on day one, but I decided to do a 11-mile float that has never let me down until that day. I'm so on that 11-mile float. I figured I would catch. I figured I would catch 3 over 17 that would put me in the top of the group, and it would have. And they weren't there. And we have had two huge floods that have come through this area, and now we just had our third. I haven't fished in 2 weeks because the water got up to over 18 feet again.
Oh,
It has moved fish like crazy. And so when I did the float on the second day, everything that I was used to catching fish on is gone. And we had the flood that come through when we had the bad hurricane that washed out the North Carolinas, and also affected us here in Virginia.
the tropical
Yep,
depression.
yep,
Yeah.
that tropical depression. And then we had back in February, early part of March, we got pounded where the James River I live on got up to 25 feet. Now, just to take that as an example, I normally fish it when it's 5 feet. Okay. So this was 25.4 feet that it got up to. Okay.
That's
And
wild.
so, yep. And so the same thing hit the Stanton River. Stanton River got up to 19, and normally that's around 4. Okay. And so this 11-mile float that I did, 12-mile float, took all day, just did not produce any fish. And I had another kayaker that was fishing it, and he floated as well. He took the other side of the river because it's big. He didn't catch anything. He caught 4 fish all day. And here I am, I'm catching bloody 12, what I call walleye bass now, and that screwed
Walleye
me,
bass.
walleye bass, and I'm just being funny. I know the walleye, and then that's all I was catching was just shorts, and it was just a total, like, I lost my Superman powers that day of catching smallmouth bass, and I figured that would have been a great spot to fish day two, and it didn't. But it's kind of like my first ever kayak tournament. I was so worked up to go fish that I didn't do good. And then after that, I went on a hell of a run over the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm looking forward to getting back fishing the Kayak Adventure Series and do better this time.
So they have other events this year, obviously, and
hmm
I think when I listened to Drew talk about it, and I remember when I had him on the podcast in season 1, like just the whole idea to bring people together, the camaraderie, like the fellowship, like to be able to like go and like interact is not just like show up for a tournament and like, here you go, here's your paycheck, see you later, like thanks for the money. It's like he's put in all this stuff that really makes that positivity that draws the community to back to where it really should be. You know what I mean? Like the idea that we can all come together and just go out there and be like-minded anglers and just fish, have fun,
Yep.
and he's got, he's taking it across the country. So yeah, there's obviously a couple more stops this year. I think the next one's in Springfield, Ohio, and then you have St. Cloud, Minnesota. You have Boomsburg, Pennsylvania, and like then you got Franklin, Pennsylvania for broodstock. But at the end of it, yeah, like there's lots of time left to go out, and for those who haven't experienced Kayak Adventure Series like myself, I will do my best to try and go to one to experience. I know that probably the Susquehanna one is probably
that's where that's my next plan to be at. I plan on fishing the Susky for the first time. I've never been up on the Susquehanna, so I'm going to be making a couple trips here later on to it. I've made some friends, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think I want to say I'm maybe like a 5-6 hour drive to get down there. It might be a little longer, maybe more like 7, but
and he's coming back to Virginia next year too. He's actually coming to the New River next year. I saw it on the thing, so he'll be back in Virginia to fish the New River, and that is
that's on my bucket list.
That's you need to come hang with me.
Yeah, so, I think we're gonna do some fishing.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna do some fishing on the New River because this needs to be set out in plans because that is just as a river smallmouth guy, the New River is just like the Susquehanna is one of those rivers that I need to go and take my pen and go. I've fished it. I've done this. I've done that.
Well, I don't know if not to change subjects on it, but when you talk about rivers here in Virginia, I fish them all, and I can honestly tell you that the 2 rivers that I will say if you to go to is one, the New River first, and then the James River second. But the power of the fish is on that New River. I've never experienced power in a smallmouth because one thing about the New River, the river runs backwards, okay? And the current goes this way, that way. I mean, it's north, south. It does not make those fish are so strong that your 14-inch fish feels like a 22. And I'm telling you this right now, I'm not giving up spots that I fish yet but I'm telling you this right now. If you want to, and the New River in Virginia is where to be at. I don't know. I'm not going to discredit West Virginia because Hovey had a tournament out that way. Guys caught big fish out there. It was a 23 caught somewhere down that way. But I'm going to tell you that the Virginia water, as far as the New River goes, you just talking about if you want the experience of a pull of your lifetime. I mean, I'm a James guy. I'm 10 minutes from the James River. It's my home river. But I make the 1.5-hour drives, even all the way up to 2.5-hour drive a few times a month to go experience a pool like that. This is unbelievable.
Like I couldn't imagine like just going through that. Like you're saying, like you're hooking a 15-inch fish and it's pulling like a 20. And if anybody's gonna know how the fish pull, because you have set, a 23.25, to, 21s, 20s, 19s, you have enough citations to know how these fish pull. And that's pretty impressive that there's strong enough water out there where these things are just on a treadmill all day. And, it's like, well, that's not what I thought it was. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could see why that is an experience that draws a lot of anglers, whether you're a smallmouth guy or a river angler, whatever it is, that draws people to these rivers. And the James, that's just another one of those rivers that the New River just on a bucket list of rivers that I want to go and experience, at some point and
But
fish.
the new will humble you. And one thing about the new, you're not going to catch the quantity of fish that you'll find like on the James River, but you will catch the size of it. Our first tournament was Smallie Chasers this year. I went out, we pre-fished in a different area on Friday, caught maybe 80. I caught 80 inches on Friday. I come back because I knew I wasn't going to go smoke where I wanted to go fish at on the
Yeah.
new river this year. And we have our first tournament there in April. I caught 95 inches. And so I had three. I had three over 19, and another one, another 20 and a half, and my small fish was a 17. And just the power of those fish, and 95 inches was a record for our club that we had in the event, because no one has ever broke 95. I think last year was 93. And but I've had two tournaments down on the New River where I broke over 90 before, and I'm going to tell you, but I've been down there before, and it sent me back home packing, with skunked out, because it will humble you quick. So
Yeah.
yep.
Now, is that part of that Smallie Chasers River Bass and
Yes.
series? So you are the American Chase Division of the Year for 2024. Also, like 2024 just seems to be the year, and I'm sure 2025 is going to be even better for you.
Yep.
But you went through, you've sealed the deal with, the angler being the champion for the KBF Smallie Series. You also sit on top of the American Chase Division Angler of the Year. You still very humbled, very, just, this is who I am. I like to go fish. It doesn't seem like, it's really changed your, the way you perceive life, in that sense, like, oh, look at me. I'm bassing around. I'm the guy that, I catch 20, it's like, you're still the same dude that, and you're just humble human. But through all of this, you've had your own challenges on the water, and just like me, I was faced with quite a challenge back in October, where I took a tree, pinned me to the bottom of the river, and I remember talking with you about your experience, and you had a experience on the river too, where like one day it was just like you're out there, and the next thing you know, it's like, what the heck happened? Like, how did I end up here? And yet you're still very humbled to be out there. It hasn't changed your passion. So I don't know. And we don't have to talk about that either. Like I respect that too, as those are, experiences, and, sometimes, those are the ones that, kind of sit back and, as humble as you can be, still kind of like let you know that they are there, and they're still very real experiences. So,
well, I would not be here if I did not wear my life jacket. I mean, my PDF saved me, and I went on and shot a video for Yak Attack, and I'm gonna tell you, you never see me fishing without my life jacket. I don't care how hot it gets here, 100 plus degrees, it does not make a difference. And if that day, that when I almost my life was almost over with, I was, if it was not for my life jacket, I would have been gone, because here I am. I'm not your traditional guy that sits in a kayak when I'm on a river. I weight it, I tether, I drag it. So I have river boots on. Okay, I have spike boots on, so they're already heavy enough, And so, when you're, you have an accident, you never know. You're not really ever planning that and all that stuff like that. Then when you see all your gear gone, and then you're holding a $600 fishing pole in your hand, and it's like you have to let that go in order to save your life and everything, and watch that go. And then and my life jacket, if I did not have that on, I would not be here having this podcast interview with you. And you probably know that as well from your accident as well. I mean,
oh, dude.
And it's sad every year how many folks lose their life because they don't take they think it's too cool to keep a life jacket on because it's too hot, or I need to show off. I have new muscles, but I don't want to show them off that bad. I'll keep my life jacket on.
Yeah, it is so true that every year it's sad that, people go out there and like, and take it to anybody who's listening right now, take it from Troy and I. We'll tell you how quickly things can change out there.
Yep.
And the last thing you want to worry about when you end up in the water is how you're going to keep your head afloat.
Yep.
Because that is going to be the struggle of a lifetime. And thankfully, like for me, when my accident happened, I was actually wading. I had my kayak because I do a lot of wading also. Like I was not in my kayak. I was standing fishing with my kayak behind me on a 10-foot rope that I pull and I drag this Jackson Bite FD behind me, or I have another one on my Lizka too. And I'll tell you this, like it is scary how fast things can change. And anybody who wades the river definitely knows, when you're stepping through, it is already easy enough just to twist an ankle, tweak your knee, it doesn't take much. And so yeah, PFDs, oh man, like, I don't know. I tell people like it'll save your life. Like but it only works if you're wearing it.
Exactly.
It's not going to do you any good on the back of your seat. It's not going to do any good in the back of your kayak. It's not going to do you any good at home. It is only going to work if you wear it. So yeah, take it from us. Wear your PFDs. Come on. Like this is a no-brainer. And I want to see fishing photos. I want to see my friends happy. Like I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, because I remember seeing about that accident. I just thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, like this can't be happening right now, and so, and even in my own accident, I was just like, it's in some ways baffling that it does happen, so always thankful and grateful to still be here and still have an opportunity to still go out on the water and just breathe life and, in its full potential. But yeah, man, like I gotta ask you, like, so when it comes to fishing techniques, okay, are you more on the finesse side or the power fishing side?
I'm a power.
Okay, because I don't know. If you would have said I'm a finesse fisherman, I would have been blown away, because I thought for sure you'd be on the power side of things.
Yeah. I'm 100% power. I'd rather go out swinging my bat like Mark McGuire. I said Barry Bonds.
yeah.
I'm going to go down with either a home run, or I'm going to I'm going to get struck out.
Struck out.
There is a time and place that I slow it down to fish. I'm not going to take an L on purpose because I want to be hard headed and do it. But I think one of the biggest things I'm successful with is that, and I take it when I go to a lot of rivers, these fish are seeing the same stuff all the time. And I used to be a finesse guy, and I noticed that, I wasn't catching the right size fish that I want. When you fish tournaments, 20-inch fish isn't going to cash you a check all day. It will catch you big fish, but you want to catch 17, 18, 19-inch fish. You catch 5 of them, you cashing a check every time, either first place or down to whatever. And so to me, I'm just a power guy, and as soon as I can start throwing top water, that's my favorite thing to do. I will stick with it until I don't, and then also too, I'm a big spinnerbait guy. I have different techniques that I have with my spinner baits, but it's one of those things. Now I just actually learned how to be a jerk bait guy, not even about a year and a half ago, and now I love the jerk bait. My uncle always told me it was always a jerk waiting on a jerk. So, and I said so. So it's
Nice, dude.
but yeah. So now I'm a huge jerk bait guy. But yeah, no, it's hard for me to sit still. I'm constantly on the move. I just cannot stay in one place unless I got a solid bite right there. So I rather power, cover the water. I have my fishing line that I like to use. It's going to give me the greater distance to cover a whole lot of water. And because one thing about the smallies is there are chasers. They're not a lazy fish. And so I like I say covering that water the way I like to do it, and that's just by being a power guy. And hey, finesse works if you're, but like I say, power is mine all the way through. So.
So now I gotta ask,
Mhm.
are you an electronics guy, or are you one of those guys who doesn't
I
use
do
electronics?
I do not use electronics at all. Only time I really run any electronics is when I cannot be in that water. When that water starts getting down to about 42 degrees, that's when I'm out of the water and I'm in my boat in my rig that's got electronics sit on it. But most time I'm running a 10-foot kayak. I'm all about the paddling. I'm all about old school. I think if you reach out to Drew Gregory's guy that done the drone video, he actually come up to me at the end of the thing and said he gave me a high five. It's like, dude, you was paddling your tail off. He said a different word, but he was paddling your tail off, paddling up that river. He said you still do it old school. So I am. I'm an old school fisherman, just the way my daddy taught us. I believe where I think they're going to be at, they're going to be there. So I don't use electronics. Of course, I have a bass boat as well, 21-foot Triton. I use
Wow.
electronics on it. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
she's fully loaded. Kevin Van Dam can jump on this as Humminbird 360 to live scope to 5 graphs on it, 21-foot Patriot Elite. And so a lake, I think you need electronics. River, unless you're fishing like a calm area river, I don't feel like that you need it because, like I say, I just use what my daddy taught us years ago as my fish finder, as my brain and reading the river. I can tell the way
Oh,
the current flow is and how it's changing. And it's just that's what I do.
speaks my language. I like
Yep.
this.
Yep.
I think there is so much more as an angler you can do without having to actually rely on electronics. Like
Yes.
it's just one of those things. I totally agree with you. Lake fishing, running deep water, 100%. You running grass is a great thing, but running rivers, in my honest opinion, being able to read water, understand, what's going on around you in the environment, you know, that idea right there will kind of teach you a lot more and help you develop as an angler than just staring down at a graph and being like, well, what am I, being effective with your time. So that goes to the next one. When
Hmm.
it comes to kayaks, do
Yep.
you pedal, or are you a motor guy?
90% of me is all paddle. I run my 10-footer. I paddle up the river all the time. Like saying, unless I get into a section that I got to cover a whole lot of water to get to where I want to go to, then I'll go ahead and run my NK and I'll use the motor. But I'm going to tell you, 90% of the time, I'm down the bank. I'm the type of guy that throws his kayak on the shoulders, and I'll get wherever I get. Enter a creek to get out into the that's as long as it's not private property, to get out there on to get to that spot on the river to get to it. So I'm like I say, I'm 100% paddle guy.
See, you and I, brother, I love paddling. I'm just one of those people that even I like own, what was it, 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023, I got a pedal drive kayak, which is the Bite FD, and it's a great kayak. And when my son comes out with me, that's what he uses. But I love to paddle. Like I love the drive. Don't get me wrong, but I find myself paddling, and it's just
Yep.
like It's I don't know. I just love the endurance. I love just being able to cut the water with that paddle. Yeah, I think a motor probably will happen eventually, because it does, you can really cover a lot of water quickly, and especially if you have spots you want to just, you want to hit, like
Mm.
that's the spot I want to hit, or, I love to explore water too at the same time. So no, that's cool. I always love fellow paddlers, man. Like
Yep.
I feel a lot of people get into kayak fishing right now, and they're just so quick to throw a motor on, and they're just so quick, and they have zero paddling skills. And one day, that motor is it may let you down, and
Yep.
not having those essential paddling skills, I really feel like, is I wish people would take a little more time to understand those, because you will need to paddle at some time. It comes a time where, the motor or the pedal or whatnot Yeah, and being able to like really get from one end to the where you need to go is, it's important,
Yeah,
so
I don't think I'm not a big paddle guy on a lake. I will say if I'm, a couple of our
the
lakes have
drive works
smallmouth
nice.
and so the drive or a motor was, but like I said, on our river systems here, our river systems are so rocky, and so it's hard to keep it. To me, it's hard to. I'd rather just be paddling, going in between them and stuff like that. It's just easier for me to just go ahead and do the paddling. Now, don't get me wrong, when you've been fishing a tournament like for Smallie chasers that starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 4 o'clock in a day, sometimes your tongue's hanging out by the end of the day. But
Oh, I bet.
it's one of those things that it's a rewarding tongue hanging out. So you gave your best regardless if it's first or last. So
Yeah, and the physical endurance of it, like you said, you've been posting about hitting the gym, and I'm sure you're paddling straw. It's just, not just in the gym, you're just seeing that physical endurance too, out on the water. So as we come to a close, I just wanted to know what is Troy bassing around got going on for 2025? Like
well,
what's your
yeah.
plan here?
Well, we're going to hopefully in the I got some vacation that's going to be happening here in a week. So we're getting ready to pull the old shock and awe. If I have not found this 100 smallmouth bass here in the next week or so, I'm planning on just really tearing the waters up for about 9 straight days straight so I can get this. But my goal is to reach that 100 fish quest of Virginia trophy citations. Looking forward to finally going up to fishing in PA and fishing some of the bigger events up there. I just joined the Virginia Bassmasters Club. We have a tournament coming up on June the 7th, fishing with the in the Bassmasters here for Virginia. So hopefully can get some qualifications to go fish in Bassmaster in 2026. But just more big events. I love my small clubs and I love doing that. And I think I always will show out and fish those. I feel like I'm probably going to move away from monthlies after this year. I think I'm going to focus more on just exploring more rivers. And that could happen easily anytime with me because, I've won tournaments. I've won my goal with KBF. One of my best moments this year was watching one of my best friends win his first ever tournament. And I posted it on my social media and it was one of those things so I like seeing my friends do well. I've been working with a bunch of younger folks and trying to get them into kayak bass fishing. So it's I don't say my career is winding down, but I've logged a lot of miles out here on this water going up and down. And so I'm gonna pull back a little bit, but I'm still gonna fish hard for those bigger fish. And then like I say, I want to get back out there for Kayak Adventure Series and fish that one up in PA as well. So it's just Chase will still be on. So that,
Well, I'm excited to see what comes, like 2023, 2024, like, it is nothing but smallies.
yeah,
You are
yeah,
truly bassing around.
yeah.
That's plain and simple, But yeah, no, man, like I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm finally like so appreciative of you taking your time
Yep.
for me and all of the listeners of the River Run podcast. And yeah, man, why don't you let people know, like obviously you know where to find Troy Wines, but if you
Yep.
got anybody you want to shout out, sponsors, social media, all that, I'll let you take the stage.
All right. Well, I will like to shout out some of my sponsors. As without them, I wouldn't be able to do it. But my longest one's Hook Gear. I don't have any of their stuff on, but most time when you seeing me holding those big fish up, Hook Gear as far as things go. Fish Hog Lures, brand new jersey that I have with them. Some of the best spinner baits. I throw them all day long. Bent Rod Fishing here, get bent out of their Virginia company as well. A lot of great soft plastic. If you haven't seen the rig, check out the rig. It's if you love throwing a fluke, but now a weighted fluke, you need to go check out the rig that they have to offer. Another local company, Custom Baits, that does a lot of work for me. Tiger Crankbaits. They're a local Virginia company. They do so much for me, provide me a lot of lures. I've caught a lot of big bass, especially on their top water and the crankbaits. Tactical fishing. If you're a military guy, Andrew Blair will take care of you. Andrew Blair Fishing and tackle fishing. Those guys are great. He does a lot of great soft plastic as well. But it's I appreciate you having me on here. Like I say, it's one of those things. It just actually puts a big smile on my face because, as I told you in the beginning, some of the best people that's been to me has been my friends up north, and am not only I consider you a friend, I consider you my brother as well. And especially with some of the conversations that we had. But I just want to thank you for having me on here, and I want to thank everybody for supporting me. Jump on my Instagram page, TikTok. Just look up Troy Bassin around. I'm everywhere. Hit the Google machine. You find me. This face ain't changing. The beard will be there. If it don't have the beard, it ain't me.
Well, you know what, brother? Like I said, you meet a lot of great people through social media, through fishing. We all have that same passion, and yeah, for sure, you are definitely a brother. I'm thankful for all your insights and everything that you bring, and you are truly a very humble person. And I think I always enjoy seeing all the smiles and the river smallmouth, and our conversations are always good and positive, and man. So I just couldn't think of a better person to have for episode 1 of
Humble.
The River Run podcast for season 2. That's right, we are here. But yeah, so we're gonna end this thing here. So like I said, thank you to everyone who is listening. Don't forget, you can listen to the River Run podcast on the River Run Podcast TV on YouTube. You can also go check out Paddle and Fin. Paddle and Fin is the one who presents this podcast. And don't forget, make sure you go and follow Troy Bassin around. Why? Because you might learn something. You also will get a big smile and a big grin on your face when you see that man holding up some serious, like a 23.25 smallmouth. He is the 2024 Smallmouth River Series Champion. That is something to be applauded about. A fantastic human being, and somebody I call a brother. So you know what? From myself and Troy, we wish you till the next time on the River Run podcast. I'm your host, Adam Fraser, and this is my guest, Troy Wines. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Fraser Pross, Make and Tame Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the 20s with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.